She just wants to be beautiful. She goes.
Eating disorders describe illnesses that are characterized by irregular eating habits and severe distress or concern about body weight or shape.
She prays to be sculpted by the sculptor. Oh, she don't see.
Eating disturbances may include inadequate or excessive food intake, which can ultimately damage an individual's well-being. Eating disorders affect several million people at any given time, most often women between the ages of 12 and 35. There are three main types of eating disorders: anorexia nervosa, bulimia nervosa, and binge eating disorder. Although the term eating is in the name, eating disorders are about more than food. They're complex mental health conditions that often require the intervention of medical and psychological experts to alter their course. In severe cases, eating disorders can cause serious health consequences and may even result in death if left untreated. Those with eating disorders can have a variety of symptoms. However, must include the severe restriction of food, food binges, or purging behaviors like vomiting or over-exercising.
Starving, cover girls eat nothing. She says beauty is pain and there's beauty in everything. What's a little bit of hunger? I can go a little while longer. She fades away.
You may ask yourself, what causes them? Well, experts believe that eating disorders may be caused by a variety of factors. One of these is genetics. Twin and adoption studies involving twins who were separated at birth and adopted by different families provide some evidence that eating disorders may be hereditary. This type of research has generally shown that if one twin develops an eating disorder, the other has 50% likelihood of developing one too, on average. Personality traits are another cause. In particular, neuroticism, perfectionism, and impulsivity are three personality traits often linked to a higher risk of developing an eating disorder. Other potential causes include perceived pressures to be thin, cultural preferences for thinness, and exposure to media promoting such ideals. In fact, certain eating disorders appear to be mostly non-existent in cultures that haven't been exposed to Western ideals of thinness. That said, culturally accepted ideals of thinness are very present in many areas of the world. Yet, in some countries, few individuals end up developing an eating disorder. Thus, they are likely caused by a mix of factors. Now, to talk about the most well-known eating disorder, anorexia nervosa. It generally develops during adolescence or young adulthood and tends to affect more women than men. People with anorexia generally view themselves as overweight, even if they're dangerously underweight. They tend to constantly monitor their weight, avoid eating certain types of food, and severely restrict their calories. Common symptoms of anorexia nervosa include being considerably underweight compared with people of similar age and height, very restricted eating patterns, an intense fear of gaining weight or persistent behaviors to avoid gaining weight despite being underweight, a relentless pursuit of thinness and unwillingness to maintain a healthy weight, a heavy influence of body weight or perceived body shape on self-esteem, and a distorted body image including denial of being seriously underweight. It consists of losing weight solely through dieting, fasting, or excessive exercise, as well as purging using activities like vomiting, taking laxatives, or diuretics. Another well-known eating disorder is bulimia nervosa. Like anorexia, bulimia tends to develop during adolescence and early adulthood. It appears to be less common among men than women. People with bulimia frequently eat unusually large amounts of food in specific period of time. Each binge eating episode usually continues until the person becomes painfully full. During a binge, the person usually feels that they cannot stop eating or control how much they are eating. Common symptoms of bulimia nervosa include recurrent episodes of binge eating with a feeling of lack of control, recurrent episodes of inappropriate purging behaviors to prevent weight gain, a self-esteem overly influenced by body shape and weight, a fear of gaining weight despite having a normal weight, And last but not least is binge eating disorder. It is believed to be one of the most common eating disorders, especially in the United States. It typically begins during adolescence and early adulthood, although it can develop later on. Individuals with this disorder have symptoms similar to those of bulimia or the binge eating subtype of anorexia. The common symptoms of binge eating disorder include eating large amounts of food rapidly in secret and until uncomfortably full, despite not feeling hungry, feeling a lack of control during episodes of binge eating, feeling of distress such as shame, disgust, or guilt when thinking about the binge eating behavior, no use of purging behaviors such as calorie restriction, vomiting, excessive exercise, or laxative or diuretic use to compensate for the binging.
I can do it. I can do it.
Now I'd like to talk about the severe case of a YouTuber named Eugenia Cooney who disappeared from the platform in February 2019 to work on her health with a doctor. After years of subscribers and wider community speculating over her incredibly low weight and the possibility of her having a severe eating disorder. The reason why I mention her is because what you need when you're suffering from this type of disorder is support from your family and friends. This is something she didn't have. Eugenia Cooney was harassed by her fans, or so-called subscribers and fans, on her channel instead of being supported. This is something you can't ever do because it simply just hurts the situation further, and they would ridiculize her and call her names for her weight, which just made everything sort of worse. There's a writing published by Hannah Papazova which speaks about the history of services for eating disorders with regard to political and women's situational changes in the Czech Republic. This writing speaks about the examination of the transcultural literature on eating disorders to investigate outcome and the specific political culture factors that may have influenced epidemiology and the symptoms, as well as other aspects of eating disorder illnesses. You could suppose educational institutions teach preteens and teenagers about this kind of subject, but the truth behind it is they aren't really taught about it. This is due to the fact that most people don't see this as a very dangerous problem or anything of high importance. But it truly is, because it takes away lives, and it builds generations that will just discriminate others for what's stereotypical and what's supposed to be good-looking. Important people who partake in the road to recovery of a person who suffers an eating disorder are psychologists. This is due to the fact that they are well prepared and they have studied the actions and thoughts behind the eating disorder and what the person may be feeling at the time. They would know how to get to this road to recovery and how to get behind that person's thoughts to make them think of a healthier life. Throughout the years of our evolution, the idea of what an attractive body should look like has uncontrollably changed. Centuries ago, it was favorable if a woman was thick, because it meant that she was better prepared to make a lot of kids and be a good mother, and that created ideas so that society would adapt to those ideas and change so that they would fit in. Nowadays, the idea is that you must worship all of those who are skinny and who are fit. But these are just constructions that people want you to believe so that you would fit in, but they're not true. While eating disorders typically require professional intervention and treatment for healing and recovery, there continues to be a gap between the sufferer and the resources needed for treatment. Even with health insurance, the cost of eating disorder treatment over a lifetime can be beyond what a person can reasonably afford, especially for a chronic disease that may require for some ongoing treatment. Research has shown that on average, annual healthcare costs are almost $2,000 greater among individuals with eating disorders compared to general population. In addition, individuals with eating disorders have been shown to be less likely to report any earnings in the past 12 months, with those earning an income to be lower than those with eating disorders. The result of decreased earnings and increased costs of treatment are telling of the economic impact of eating disorders. Last but not least, I'd like to give some suggestions for those who suffer from an eating disorder. Remember, there's people who care about you. And remember that you can always go to a psychiatrist or online places where you can get help. And for those who want to help someone with an eating disorder, avoid ultimatums, avoid commenting on appearances or weight, avoid shaming and blaming, and avoid giving simple solutions. It's not simple. Thank you.